The origin of the Filipino people. Some historians and scientists believe that the first inhabitants of the Philippine Islands emerged during the Pleistocene period. There are two theories on where the inhabitants or first Filipinos came from, namely. First is Bayer's migration theory, and second, Chicano's evolution theory. Bayer states that Filipinos descended from different groups that came from Southeast Asia in successive waves of migration. Each group had a distinct culture with its own customs and traditions. While Chicano's theory tells that Asian, including Filipinos, are the result of a lengthy process of evolution and migration. What is the migration theory? Migration theories seek to understand the reasoning behind and motivations for the decisions of individuals and households to move from one location to another, either domestically or internationally, as well as the factors that explain the maintenance of migration flows over time. According to Bayer's migration theory, the first migrants were the Dawn men, or cavemen, because they lived in caves. The Dawn men resembled Java men, Peking men, and other Asian Homo sapiens who existed about 250 years ago. They did not have any knowledge of agriculture and lived by hunting and fishing. It was precisely in search of food that they came to the Philippines by the way of the land bridges that connected the Philippines and Indonesia. Eventually, they left the Philippines. The second group of migrants was composed of dark-skinned pygmies called Atas or Negritos. About 30,000 years ago, they crossed the land bridge from Malaya, Borneo, and Australia until they reached Palawan, Mindoro, and Mindanao. They were pygmies who went around practically naked and were good at hunting, fishing, and food gathering. They used spears and small fir stone weapons. Because of the disappearance of the land bridges, the third wave of migrants was necessarily skilled in seafaring. These were the Indonesians who came to the islands in boats. They were more advanced than the Atas in that. They had tools made out of stone and steel, which enabled them to build sturdier houses. They engaged in farming and mining and used materials made of brass. They wore clothing and other body ornaments. Last to migrate to the Philippines were Malays. They were believed to have come from Java, Sumatra, Borneo, and the Malay Peninsula for more than 2,000 years ago. Like the Indonesians, they also traveled in boats. The Malays were brown-skinned and medium height, with straight black hair and flat noses. Their technology was said to be more advanced than that of their predecessors. They engaged in pottery, weaving, jewelry making, and metal smelting, and introduced the irrigation system in rice planting. The next theory is evolution theory. What is the evolution theory? The evolution theory is a scientific theory that essentially states that species change over time. According to Chicano's evolution theory, Filipinos descended from Negritos and Malays who migrated to the Philippines thousands of years ago. It is difficult to prove that the Negritos were the first inhabitants of this country. The only thing that can positively concluded from fossil evidence is that the first men who came to the Philippines also went to New Guinea, Java, Borneo, and Australia. In 1962, a skull cap and a portion of a Jew presumed to be a human origin were found in the Tabon caves of Palawan by the two archaeologists Robert Fox and Manuel Santiago, who both work for the National Museum. Carbon dating placed their age at 21,000 to 22,000 years. This proves that the man came earlier to the Philippines than to the Malay Peninsula. Therefore, the first inhabitants of our islands could not have come from the region. The Tabon man is said to resemble Java man and Peking man. He gathered fruit, leaves, and plants for his food. He hunted with weapons made of stone. Although further research is still being done on his life and culture, evidence shows that he was already capable of using his brain in order to survive and keep himself safe. Instead of the migration theory, the evolution theory is a better explanation of how our country was first inhabited by human beings. Scientists believe that the first Filipino of Southeast Asia were products of a long process and evolution and migration. This research indicates that they shared more or less the same culture, beliefs, practices, and even similar tools and implements. These people eventually went their separate ways. Some migrated to the Philippines, the others to New Guinea, Java, and Borneo. Proof that can be found in the fossils discovered in different parts of Southeast Asia, as well as the recorded migrations of other peoples from the Asian mainland when history began to unfold.